Okay.
Yeah.
We are getting ready for episode 90 here. And we're marching to episode 100. Getting ready for a family meeting on the family meeting. So that'll be interesting.
It scares me a little, to be honest.
Gonna have the whole family on, all 6 of us gathered around some microphones.
Yeah. And I'm concerned that I'm not going to have the control that I feel like I need in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have a difficult time, I think.
It's a valid concern, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely valid concern. We also want to invite you to Relationship Refresh, July 15th and 16th in Orlando. And you can check out our website for all that information that you need. Tickets are $25 a person, and then you reserve your own hotel room. You can stay at the Point Resort where we're going to be, or you can stay anywhere else. But that's July 15th and 16th. Go to familymeeting.org for more information on that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that myself.
Yeah, me too.
Because
it's always a good time.
We need a relationship refresh.
I think so.
At least annually.
Yeah, especially after spending all this time recording. You need it.
I need it.
You need a little refresh.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready to get into episode 90?
I am. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is a good episode, I think.
I don't even know what we're talking about, so let's see what happens. Gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas. This is my wife, LaDoodle.
Hello, and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 90 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss friendships and how to build them. I recently wrote an article for the Family Meeting blog about this entitled Find Me a Friend, and we received quite a response. Parents want their kids to have friends, and not just any friends, but they want them to have good friends. But how do you find them? Where do you make these connections? What if you're new to an area? What if your child struggles to make friends? So we're going to give you some ideas, tips, and suggestions today. And who knows, you may learn how to find a friend as an adult as well.
I need this. You're always like, I'm going to go out with my friends. I was like, what's that like?
Aw, poor little Thomas with no friends.
I'm Mr. Lonely.
Yes.
I've got nobody. My mom used to listen to that.
That's nice.
That is Bobby Vinton.
Let's let Bobby Vinton sing that song.
All right.
You record a podcast.
I sound exactly like him. So. But friendships.
Yes.
And man, friendships are just so important. And God created us to be social beings. Some more than others. But we all need people in our lives. We all need quality people in our lives. Mm-hmm. In Genesis chapter 2, verse number 18, we see God make a statement. And if you're not paying attention to what you've read all along, then this statement may not mean a whole lot to you. But if you start at Genesis chapter number 1 and you read through, God is doing all this stuff. He's creating all these things. And he's saying, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. And God looks back at one point and says, it looks back at everything he says, and behold, it's very good. So he's done all this stuff. It's all good. And then we get to Genesis chapter number 2, and he says this, it is not good. Mm-hmm. So that should catch our attention right away, because it's the first time that God says this. It is not good. And here's what he said it's not good about. That the man should be alone. God created us. God designed us for friendships, for relationships. We all need them. We are built and created for community. And this is one reason why being in a church family is important. Obviously, I'm a pastor, so I think that church is important. But even if I wasn't a pastor, church is important. Mm-hmm. Because we need that community. We need those quality relationships. It's one reason why we started Family Meeting Podcast and the family meeting ministry that we're doing, because family relationships are important.
Yes, they are.
And it's an integral part of our lives. And so we need to make and invest in friendships where we are created by God to have relationships and community.
So before we moved to Florida this past September, we'd lived in the same house for 14 years, which, by the way, after 14 years, the junk really piles up in your home,
gosh.
in the cracks and crevices. And oh my goodness.
It's literally like, where is all this stuff coming from?
I know. It was terrible. But we had put down roots there. We all had great friendships. The girls were so sad when we told them that we felt that this move was right for our family.
Well, and it was literally the only place they ever remembered. They were toddlers / infants, the two older when we moved.
Catherine hadn't even had her second birthday. We had her second birthday in Iowa.
So it's literally the only place that they ever knew, that they remember anyway, other than, hey, look at this picture from back when you were in Alabama at 1.
Yeah. But when we move, we won't have any friends. That's one of the responses from our 4 daughters. They had such close, good friends that the idea of leaving them and moving 1,300 miles away was really devastating for them.
And that statement is absolutely true. We moved, so they said, hey, we won't have any friends. We moved to an area where we did not know a single person. And even though we were going to work with a church, everyone in the church were strangers to them. All of us were faced with the fact that we would have to start over building friendships in our new location. And finding a friend can be daunting.
Yeah.
For some of you, it's so easy. You just click and you're friends. But for some of us, it takes a little more work. And even for some of your kids, like some of your kids will walk in and they'll be friends with everybody. But some of them, it's a real challenge. And we understood that. And we knew we were going to have to make finding our children friends a priority. And one of the very top priorities that we had coming down here was making sure that our kids had friends.
So we moved in September. Violet's birthday is in October. And in Iowa, we always had big birthday parties with lots of friends and family. I mean, half of the friends were cousins, you know?
Yeah.
Now we had no friends and no family in the area. And I was just burdened to think that my 10-year-old daughter would have no one at her birthday party a month after our move. I mean, I was like, oh man, I prayed. Like I prayed and prayed about this. And it really, the thought of that really upset me. And I'm happy to say that she was overjoyed when there were around 30 people at her birthday party, only 4 weeks after we arrived in our new home.
I was literally sitting in here and I was just like, who are all these people and where did they come from?
I mean, a lot of them were almost strangers, you know? I mean, we barely met them. And we're going to describe and discuss how...
Some of them I met for the very first time that day.
Yes, I introduced you to a lot of moms and a lot of kids that day.
Yeah.
I'm going to explain to you how this happened. How did we have 30 people at a birthday party 4 weeks after we moved?
It just happened, right?
It didn't just happen.
Oh.
Well, it just happened for you.
Yeah. I was like, oh, look at this.
Yeah, exactly. You just
nice.
walked into it. I'm like, you're handling games, and that's all you knew.
Yeah.
I handled making sure that it happened, right? So it didn't just happen, though, really. We,
Mostly you.
mostly me, put real intentionality, though, into finding Violet friends. And not just any friends, although, I don't know, at that point, I probably would have just about taken anybody.
Come to the party.
Yeah. But really, all the friends that we had were amazing. They were sweet, sweet girls. And
Were a past tense. Now they're horrible.
no, that is not true.
Oh,
But
do you mean they are?
they are. I'm just talking about the birthday party in the past, not the
okay.
girls
All
in the
right.
past.
Fine.
But I think I'm kind of quickly mentally going through my mind. All of the girls that came that day are still her very good friends to this day. I want to say that. I'm almost positive as I think about who came. They're all really great friends. to this
That's
day.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And-
it was a
and-
success.
It's one of those things that remind me how incredible that my wife is. And this is really one area where you shine big time. She not only had the house totally painted, but also mostly unpacked in just a couple of days after we got to Florida. And that Friday, she made a play date with 2 little girls in our new church that we hadn't even met yet.
Yep.
And they came over and played with Violet for an evening. And it was so cool in just the way that God works things out. these girls clicked with Violet right away.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, and they had a great time. And I think those are the same two girls that were here last night, right?
They were here last night,
They were here last night.
Oh, and it was fabulous. They had a great time last night, too.
But that's just it. They clicked right away. They became good friends.
As soon as those little girls, so I went and picked them up. I dropped our girls off at a youth activity and picked the girls up from the parents at that same activity at the park. And when those two little girls got in the van and they sat next to Violet, and I'm driving along and I could hear them in the background, and all of a sudden it was just like, and like lots of talking and eruptions of laughter. And they had met 5 minutes ago. And I remember just driving down the road and like crying a little bit.
I was going to say, I'm guessing there were tears.
There were absolutely tears. And I was just like, thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this. Because it was such a gift of God.
Yeah. It's nice when that happens, but it doesn't always work that well.
That's true.
Sometimes you invite the kids over and they simply don't mesh well with your kids. And we've had that happen here. Where we've invited people over and it's just, for whatever reason, their personality and whatever, it just doesn't mesh. Hey, that's okay. As adults, we don't immediately become best friends with everyone we meet. Now, there are people that you click with, and I have guys that I click with them. Met them one time and we just had an instant connection. Then there's other guys you meet and it's like, nah, I like you. You're a nice person. But we're probably not going to be best friends. But we got the people that we click with, people that you are indifferent towards, people who don't like you. It seems like that list is pretty long for me. People who don't like me. And people that rub you the wrong way. Like, don't get discouraged, though. You just have to keep at it.
That's right. And when we got here, I had so much I wanted to accomplish. My lists were very long. And I'm not talking my list was long. My lists were very long.
When don't you have a long list, though? Like, seriously.
So my daily list oftentimes gets down to nothing. I love it when that happens. But my longer list, that it's always long.
It's always getting longer.
It is. I'm always throwing more stuff on there. But I had a list for every room in the house. I had a list for the yard, a list for church plans. Yet I had to make a choice to facilitate that play date, even though we had just arrived in our new home. I mean, we had been here for 4 days, but I had to set all of the lists aside and all those things aside and say, no, I'm going to take the girls to this youth activity and I'm going to have little girls come over to our house and they're going to play with whatever toys are already unpacked and stuff. The point that I'm trying to impart to you is that there are always excuses not to invite kids over.
Oh, yeah.
There's always going to be lists to accomplish, and it will be very rare that it's convenient to have kids over or drop your kids off at a friend's house or make the play date. It's going to be inconvenient. So if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I would be happy to, make a play date for my kids, but I don't have enough time because I'm in the middle of this and I'm in the middle. You're always going to be in the middle of something. Okay. So what you're going to have to do is just say, I'm going to stop in the middle of this and I'm going to make a play date. I'm going to go drop the kids off at a friend's house. I'm going to go to the park and we're going to play with these kids or whatever. If we as parents make it a priority, no matter what's going on in our lives, then we will accomplish finding friends for our kids. We just have to make it a priority.
Well, and I just wrote a blog on this for the Family Meeting blog on Monday about weighing out what's most important in your relationships. Is getting the list done important? It is. There's things that we have to accomplish. Those things are important. But is that the most important thing in the moment? And is it the most important thing long-term for your relationships? So for our kids, the most important thing long-term that had to be weighed out was them having good friends. So you have to weigh that out. And speaking of good friends, a dear lady once said something that really stuck out to us when our kids were younger. And she said, your kids will listen to their friends when they won't listen to you. So make sure they have good friends. And I thought that was such wise advice.
It's very good.
Because our kids do listen to us. They value what it is that we say. At least they do right now.
Right now.
But they are strongly and heavily influenced by the people that they hang around with. We all are. So we need to be helping our kids find friendships that will be a positive influence on them rather than an influence that will lead them down a road will be bad for them. If your children are new to an area in a new season of life or struggle to make friends, here are some practical tips you can use to help your children find good friendships.
Okay, so the first thing that I did when we got into Florida is I got on social media groups where there are families with similar interests. So that's number one. The first thing that you can do to help your child find good friends is get on social media groups.
And that's one of the great things about social media. Like, there's positive and negatives to everything.
Yes.
But being able to make real connections, and let me say this, just connections on social media, that's not real connections. We use the social media connections to make real connections with people in real life. So that's one of the positive things, is being able to make good connections.
Absolutely. So think about, like, what is it that, your kids like? What is it that would be would be kind of a similar interest? Okay. People you're going to click with and become best friends with don't usually just show up on your doorstep. Ding dong. Hey.
That's not happened to me yet.
Yeah. Hey, Thomas is really into graphic design. Me too. Should we get together? That's not going to happen, okay? You have to go find them. How? How can you go find them? So go get on the Facebook group where you can find people with similar interests. We're a homeschool family, okay? So we joined every Facebook homeschool group in our area, and that's what you can do. Maybe your kids are into taekwondo. Maybe it's robotics or soccer. Maybe it's a Lego group. Like, there are parents out there who have, I'm guaranteed there's a Lego group for, like, parents with kids who
definitely
love Legos.
They have competitions and everything.
Yeah. So literally whatever it is that your kid is into, art, blah, blah, blah. Okay, find a group like that. Search for it. You'll find them. Whatever their interests are, if you find that social media group with other kids who like the same things, then what you can do is start paying attention. So when somebody posts, I've got 3 kids, ages 5, 9, and 14. We're looking for other families to hang out with, or whatever. You've got a 14-year-old or whatever. Find those people, and then you can quickly make a message. So send a private message. When you send that private message, you're just going to be like, hey, I saw your post on Facebook and I have a daughter the same age as your daughter. Want to meet up sometime? Almost always the response to me has been yes. They want to meet up as well. And then I often will offer my own home, but a lot of times it's a little more comfortable to meet at a park or a public place. So maybe weather permitting, you could say, let's meet at a park or whatever.
Yeah, neutral location usually if you're total strangers.
I mean, you can make it McDonald's. Like, it doesn't matter where, but offer a meetup. And you're going to have to be the one to do that. Okay? Don't sit there and be like, well, I'm hoping that somebody messages me on Facebook. They won't. You have to send the message. And that's exactly what I did when we first got here, to a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I cast a wide net. And from that, we have really great friends for our kids. So that's our first tip to you.
And you have to remember, not every kid you meet or family you get together with will be the right fit. But at some point, you're going to find a good friend for your child. And often in that, a good friend for you as well. Don't give up. Your child is worth the work. Mm-hmm. And I think about some of the best friends we have in this area right now are people that you found through social media, through these different groups. Mm-hmm. Another thing that you can do is to reach out to a neighbor with kids similar ages. You live in the same area, so you're going to bump into each other more often. You're going to have more opportunities to gather together. So just pay attention in your neighborhood. Where are the things like basketball hoops, trampolines, bicycles? Those neighbors most likely have kids that are your children's potential new friends. So take walks or ride bikes, and if you can catch them outside, introduce yourself. The key is don't be shy. Be a go-getter. And Lysandra is absolutely crazy with this. Maybe don't take it to the extreme Lysandra does, because you might get a reputation as some sort of weird, crazy lady in the neighborhood. Like, oh, that's that crazy lady in the neighborhood. Like,
I definitely have that reputation.
But why don't you share some of the extreme things that you've
Extreme friend finding.
done. Exactly. It's a new Olympic sport.
Yeah. Okay. So I have literally hung out the window of my minivan, waving down neighbors to introduce myself and my children. Of course, my kids are super embarrassed, but they've made really great friendships that way. I mean, there are times when I start to roll down my window and they know when it's going to happen because they can see. They like see somebody's outside, and I start to roll down the window. They're like, "No!"
Crap, here she goes.
They'll even sometimes be like, "Please, Mom, not now." And I'm like, "It's happening." So yeah, I just wave. I'll just wave and I'll be like, "Hey, what's your name?" And I just introduce myself and I just ask a couple of questions, find out if there's something that we can connect on. One girl in our Iowa neighborhood, she was bumping a volleyball around in her yard all by herself. And I kind of drove past a little ways and then it kind of hit me like, "Oh, volleyball." So I slam on the brakes, kick it in reverse, drive back up the alley, and stop outside of her yard. She probably thought she was about to be abducted.
You are so lucky no one's called the police on you.
I know, right? So I roll down the window and I'm like, "Hey!" And she was a ways over there. So I really had to shout out pretty loud. I was like, "My daughters like volleyball too, and they're about your age. Want to play volleyball sometime?" And thankfully, she wasn't too afraid, and she came over. Now, I'm in a minivan, windows not tinted,
yeah, I was gonna
children in the car.
I was going to say, let me say this. If you are in a white van with no windows, I would not recommend any of these things.
This might be more of a mom thing, too, than a dad thing.
Oh, I'm definitely not doing this. I'm not approaching kids in my van at all, ever. No way.
All right, moms, we got to step it up for the dads.
Not happening.
We got to do this. But yeah, she came over and you can't just ask for a child's number, okay? But you can give them yours. And so I gave her my phone number and I said, "Have your mom text me." Her mom did text me. And then, when she texted, I just asked if her and her daughter could come over. I was like, "We'll drink coffee or tea and the kids can play volleyball in the backyard." So she came over. I got to know the mom a little bit. And then her mom was comfortable now. Like, we know these people. They look pretty normal, kind of normal.
Yeah.
And from then, I mean, she came to all the birthday parties. She started coming to youth group with the girls. They played volleyball in the backyard all the time and jumped on the trampoline. Like, she was a really good friend before we moved. And it was all because I wasn't afraid to hang out my window and look like a nut. So don't be afraid to do that.
And one of the key things that you've mentioned a couple times, and maybe people haven't caught on to it, but I want to point it out and make it very clear. On these initial meetups, especially when you don't know these people at all, we always invite the moms or the dads with the kids.
Right.
For a couple of reasons. We want them to feel like their kids are safe, but we also want to get to know what kind of people the parents are to see what kind of environment we may be putting our own children in. So always get the adults involved as you can. Yeah,
that's right. And remember, you know, when you're not being shy and you are putting yourself out there to meet new people, you really have to put your own insecurities last and put your children's needs first. So I mean, I know I have a bubbly, outgoing personality. I know that. But the truth is, I've got stuff to do. I would really rather just drive to my house than stop and introduce myself to neighbors who are out. But I'm trying to put my own insecurities, my own agenda last so that my kids can have friends. So that may be something you have to do. And you may be more insecure than I am, so this may be more difficult for you. But your kids are worth it. So this might be something you have to do.
And again, it's just re-emphasizing the importance of weighing out what's most important long-term for your family relationships.
Yeah.
You know, my own comfort is not as important as building good friendships for my children.
That's right.
So that's number 2. Number 3... And you may say you're a pastor, so of course you're going to say this. But I'm going to say it anyway. Because it's very helpful. Plug in quickly to a church. So I know I'm a pastor, so of course I'm going to say this. But really the best place to find good friendships for your children is in a church setting.
Yes, it is.
Now, I'm not saying church people are perfect. They're absolutely not perfect.
No.
So any of you that have gone to a church at all, or if you've even heard of a church, you know that people who go to church are not perfect.
Yes, the pastors and the pastors' wives are not perfect.
The pastor's wife might be, but the pastor definitely isn't.
No, she is not.
But in that setting, you are more likely to find like-minded people. So find that place and plug in quickly. And when your children have common interests with other children in the church, invite those families over for a grill out or to the park or to hang out. You're going to find people that you really want to be around. People who are positive, who will uplift you, who will encourage you, who will be good friends to you and to your kids. So it's a great way to make connections and build and find community.
Yeah, and I'm sad to say that it's very rare. Maybe that's too strong. You can't count on the fact that other people at the church are going to invite you over because your kids connect. Okay, you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to be like, oh, our kids connect. I'm going to be the one to invite them over. Stop waiting for someone else to invite you over. You're going to have to make the first step. So when he talks about, finding that child with a similar interest and invite them over, you can't say like, oh, they've got the similar interest. Maybe their parents will have us over. It's just not going to happen. I think too many people in our churches are waiting for that.
Yeah, they're sitting back waiting and that's just a byproduct of our American society where everything is all about me. And so we often expect people to come to us, to cater to us. It's like people who get upset because you don't call them.
Yes, right.
I mean, the phone works both ways. Like, you can dial me as well. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people, like you said, they just sit back and they wait.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. And then people are like, well, I didn't make any connections. I didn't make any friends. Well, how many people did you call? How many people did you invite over to your house? How many people did you make an effort to get together with?
That's right. So you've got to take that step. And our children have wonderful friends through our church here in Florida. We've only been here, I think, 8 months. And the friendships that they have made in our church are fantastic. They also have great friends in their church in Iowa. When we lived there. And those friends they're still friends with them to this day, and they still FaceTime and text and phone calls and all of those things. But here's what's cool about a church. And I know that this can happen, but it's less likely to happen at a church setting. Our kids were never bullied. They were never mistreated by church friends. I mean, obviously they had like little tiffs and things like that it's natural. But because it was in this good, safe setting where it's other families who are trying to raise their kids according to the Bible and like trying to raise children with good ethics and good morals and all of these things, good character, they didn't have to deal with like bullying and some of these other things that you might have to deal with in a different setting. So it's a great place to find good friendships to develop for your kids.
Just because that's been the experience for our kids doesn't mean won't be the experience of your kids.
True.
I'm sitting here trying not to laugh because our kids never had to go to church with me when I was a teenager.
Oh my goodness, that's right. You were so bad.
I was a total bully. And I feel like I might even need to make an apology to Eric Bolton right now. Because he's taller than me now. Like, he could probably take me now.
He could take you now.
Wow, you didn't even hesitate. It's like, yeah, he could. But he was a small child.
And you were a mean teenager.
I was a mean teenager. He's a few years younger than me. And I would take him and throw him in the garbage can. More than once it happened. I know I shouldn't be smiling right now, but...
Well, and I was there for that. I remember watching you do that. And I remember him laughing about it. Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear his side of that if he was like doing that laugh to like that nervous laughter just to cover. This is so fun. Great. But I honestly, it was almost like, I felt like it was a mutual like trash can dumping. No.
I don't think there's ever a mutual like, hey, throw me in the trash can. That would be awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah, so Eric, that's my bad. I've grown a little since then.
Yeah, you were the exception to the rule of church kids. You were horrible.
We're horrible.
You were not as bad.
Not as bad. I mean,
like, I don't remember the last time you put somebody in the trash can.
It's been far too long. You need to find one of our girls.
Yeah, right.
Number 4 is to be proactive. And we've we've hinted at that. We've mentioned a little bit, but just want to kind of throw it out there to emphasize it. You have to be proactive.
Yeah.
You can't sit back on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. If you do that, your children will probably not find good friendships. You have to be the one who's going to step out and make the first move. You can't wait for those friendships to develop. Go find good friends for your children. We understand you're busy. We know you're tired. We know you have a lot on your plate. Despite all that, we encourage you to do whatever it takes to help your children find friends.
That's right. And maybe the only thing that you need to do is simply accept someone else's invitation. Maybe other people have approached you and they have made that first step. Go ahead and say yes to a couple of those invites. Maybe that's where you're at. But maybe it's a little different for you. Maybe your child has a difficulty making friends. Maybe that is something that is just hard for your child. If so, walk them through ways to be a good friend. So this is something that we've always done with our kids. And I really encourage you to do that with your kids. Take some time to help them understand how to be a good friend.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times your kids aren't clicking with other friends because they're not being a good friend themselves. So there are some simple things that we do with our girls, and we've done these from when they were very young. Explain to them that you can't always talk about yourself. Have you ever had that friend that all they want to do is talk about themselves?
Yeah, and it's usually not a good friendship because it's just about them.
It's usually very one-sided. And I've had friends like this where I just have to gear up for it. Like, I know we're going to get together and this friend is not going to ask how I'm doing. They are not going to ask about my family. They're not going to show any interest in me. They're going to come and tell stories about themselves, and the whole thing is going to be about them. And I have to kind of accept that and gear up for it before they come. It's
amazing to me how many adults are clueless about this.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a very surface relationship because, yeah, you're going to be a good friend to them, but they're not going to be a good friend to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you just, like you said, you just know when I have this person over, it's all going to be about them. And if that's what they need in that time, then that's great. And you have other relationships that feed this need for community that you have.
That's right. So you have to explain to your kids that they can't always just talk about themselves. So what do? Ask questions. Help them to understand that they need to ask questions about the other friend, right? So what's your favorite color? Where do you go to school? What kinds of things do you like to do? Whatever. When they answer, pay attention to the answer and then lead that to another question about the other person. So that's one way to be a good friend. Another way that we have to talk to our kids is when they have friends over, you let the other friend choose what to do sometimes, at least sometimes, but maybe most. If you have a child that says, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to do this. We're not going to play Legos. We're going to play Uno or whatever. They're always making the choice of what they're going to do. That the friends are not going to come back over. They're not going to enjoy that. So in helping your child to be a good friend, these are some things that you can talk about. If they really, really can't interact well with other kids, even though you've coached them and you've helped them, and we've even role played, where I guess maybe you probably haven't done this with the kids. I've done this with the kids, but where they have to ask me some questions and I give answers and help them to learn how to make a conversation, right? Maybe your kid is just not getting it and they just don't have maybe the ability to interact well with other kids. Here's an idea. Plan an activity where there's very little interaction. So they don't have to do a whole lot other than maybe say like, hi to the friend, such as going to the movie theater.
Oh, yeah.
Movie theaters, you're literally not supposed to talk. So if your child cannot make connections with friends and they don't understand how to carry on a conversation, pick a movie and invite a friend to a movie theater, get some popcorn and make a day of it.
Well, and they're having a common experience together that then later on they can talk about.
Yes, exactly. Or maybe playing video games. That's another thing where you don't have to think of questions to ask. You don't have to think of where the conversation is going. You're just playing video games and maybe, you're discussing like what direction you're going to go with the video game, depending on what it is. And that's an opportunity where they can interact, but your child doesn't necessarily have to be good at,
Carry on conversations or whatever else. Yeah.
whatever else. Sometimes this can be a really good avenue to also just get them relaxed, and organic conversation can happen. But help your kids to understand that people don't want to be friends with the person who is mean or unkind or selfish.
Maybe this is my problem.
Maybe this is why you don't have any friends. Are you mean?
Could be it.
Unkind? Are you selfish?
That doesn't sound like me.
Why am I your friend?
I've been asking that for like 25 years.
I'm the nice friend over here trying to teach him how to be a friend.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Actually, you've taught me a lot about relationships in general, friendships, and how to interact with people. I'm a slow learner, but I've picked up a thing or two along the way.
I'm over here role playing with you like, now, when you meet a friend, what do you say?
When Ryan comes over, what are you going to ask him?
Ask Ryan some questions. But these behaviors, like being mean, unkind, selfish, bullying, whatever, watch for these behaviors in your child while they're interacting with other kids. So when our kids have people over, I'm always I kind of have my ear going, just paying attention in the other room. What's happening over there? And there are times when I hear something that I don't like from my child. And I will even oftentimes step in at that very moment and pull them to the side. I'd never talk to them about it in front of their friend, but pull them to the side and just be like, hey, how would you feel if your friend said this to you? Well, you just said that to them. Don't act like that. You need to stop that behavior and turn that around. And so if we can sometimes nip it in the bud and pay attention to it, we can get it right away, and we can help our kids to learn how to be good friends.
And then after that play date, that interaction, that event is over and everybody's gone home, we usually have a family meeting and just talk about, okay, how did it go with this person?
Right.
What did you think about them? And we ask some questions of our kids about the other kid to see, are they asking questions? Are they trying to get to know this person? And we use that as a teaching moment to talk about some of these things that she's already mentioned.
And we also will even ask the question, would you like to have that child over again?
Yeah.
And we don't always force them to have everyone over. Oftentimes, if there's a child where they're like, I just don't click with them. It's just not happening. In that case, we maybe won't invite that person over as often, but eventually if that person feels, we can tell they're lonely or they're looking for friendships, we may say, all right, for the Lord, we're going to have this kid over and I want you to interact with them, even though you don't really click with them. But those are kinds of questions that we do like to ask after they leave. Is this somebody you want to have over more frequently? How did it go? What did you think of them? And those kinds of things too. And then you can pursue the relationships that do work.
And we all want our kids to have good friends. Mm-hmm. If you're frustrated your kids don't have friends, you as a parent have the ability to change that. Your children are depending on you to help them with this. Mm-hmm. They can't do it on their own.
Right.
Begin today to facilitate friendships for your children. And in your family meeting tonight, we want you just to sit down and talk about the kinds of friends your kids have. Just sit down and ask them about the friendships in their life. Do they feel like they have good friendships? Who are their close friends, if they have them? Are they a positive or negative influence on your children? Ask if your kids would like more friends. Like, are you satisfied with the number of friends that you have in your life? Do you feel like you have enough friendships, enough community? And then you can discuss how you need to proceed to help your children find new good friends.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information to be helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. And maybe you've got some ideas about finding friends, or maybe you have some episode ideas you want to share with us. Shoot us an email at info@familymeeting.org, or maybe you want to shoot us a text or send us a voice message so that you can appear on an episode with us.
That would be fun.
We can answer your question there. That number is 904-257-5600. 3062. 904-257-3062.
That's right. And we're so thankful for those of you who share our episodes on your social media. It's so great to, sometimes we get to see that. Our listeners will share an episode. And just the other day, one of our listeners was at the beach and listening with their spouse on the beach to one of the episodes. And it was so cool. They shared that. And we just want to say thank you for that. We appreciate those of you who give that shout out and let other people know that we're here.
Shout out to Elisa.
What?
For that.
And we want to just remind you that our relationship refresh is coming up July 15th and 16th. No matter where you live, you can come. Orlando is a great place to fly into, and it's an awesome place to have a little refresh for your marriage relationship. So that's July 15th and 16th, and you can find more information on that on our website. We want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting when we look at jealousy.
Dun.
Yeah, thank you. Just kind of waiting for that. We need a mixer with like some sounds.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it does. But jealousy can drive some people crazy.
And for some of us, it's not a far drive.
But we're going to talk about what to do if this is an issue in your marriage and where to go from there. So join us next week for that.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. Another episode down. Want to thank you for joining us and kind of seeing some of the behind the scenes that those who just listen to the podcast don't get to see. Some of the interactions back and forth with each other. Some of the wiping of my nose. When we're recording, you know what's funny is something I don't think about. And maybe those of you on YouTube can help me with this, why this happens. For some reason, when we're recording, my nose is so itchy.
Now my nose is itchy.
Seriously, I don't.
You said something about it.
I don't notice it at any other time, and maybe it's just because the camera's on that I'm noticing that. But see, these are the conversations that you get to be a part of that the rest of our podcast listeners don't get to be a part of.
Privilege.
Just for YouTube. I mean, so
amazing.
The behind the scenes access is totally worth subscribing to our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. And you know what's weird is now that you mention it, a couple of episodes ago, I remember like there was this spot on my scalp that was so itchy, like right here, and I kept itching it. And when you put something online, I can't remember what it was, I looked at the video and I was like, oh, stop itching your head, you weirdo. Like people are going to think I have lice. I don't have lice. I just want to express that to the public. I do not have lice, but if I did, I'd share it with you.
No.
Anyway, but it's weird. Like things happen as soon as the camera's turned on.
Most definitely.
Where you're like, we look like monkeys up here.
Seriously, but we're glad. Are you picking the bugs off my head and eating it?
Sure am.
Nice.
Because that's not weird.
But thank you for joining us for this. We appreciate you and your support of Family Meeting. But we would love to see you in person.
Yeah.
We'd love to see you in Orlando at Relationship Refresh. So July 15th and 16th, if you have time, you want to spend some time in Orlando, we are literally going to be minutes away from Universal Studios, not far, maybe 20-ish minutes away from Magic Kingdom and all that stuff, a couple hours from the beach. So it's a great place to get away with your spouse and just work on your relationship. We want to encourage you to do that. So we'll see you soon. Have a great week, everybody. Bye. I never know how long to hold this.
This has to be too long.
Okay, bye.
I'm out.